still representing JVS.
I'm Ray. Hi.
Ray is back. You knew we had to go and do this wonderful thing. Sorry, I'm trying not to go. Alright, look, we're gonna talk about Suicide Squad. This is gonna be an exclusive non-spoiler review. We're gonna wait till tomorrow and reserve more judgment on our assessment as far as the spoilers. But let's go ahead to the brass tacks. What do we think about the movie? This is gonna be really interesting because we're gonna talk about what we thought about it visually, we thought about the acting, we thought about the story. Without a doubt, a lot of people have been saying a lot of negative things about the movie, and they're understandable from looking at the movie. But we are some interesting concepts of what we thought about our perception of the movie. I actually really enjoyed the movie, and we're gonna talk about what Ray thought about the movie for the good and the bad. So let's go ahead and go through it. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do this. Yeah! Okay. So in the beginning, we're gonna talk about the visual, the cinematography, the soundtrack, the cues as far as the soundtrack and the score. I thought that they worked really well.
There was a lot of it.
It was so much. It was kind of excessive sometimes.
Yeah.
There were certain cues in the very beginning and in the middle that didn't fit. It felt really jaded. But there was one amazing moment with Jared Leto's Joker, which we'll talk about that later, and Harley Quinn. Oh,
every moment with them was amazing. It just wasn't long enough.
Yeah, and it was like when I saw this sequence with them, I'm not gonna describe it for you, but the cue was perfect as far as the music. Even like the bar sequence, I thought that the cue
Harley
and the sounds for it.
It was that scene.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I think even with the bar sequence, I thought that they did a really good job with the musical cue for that. And I think that just in general, it was really upbeat. Like I think the action sequences, it could come really, I don't know. It could come off really cliche if you think about it from the way they actually cut the sound. But I think that it worked for the most part. I didn't have a real problem with the soundtrack. What do you think about the sound or the visuals in general?
The visuals to start off with in the beginning of the movie, I had read about how, or I also kind of heard how the beginning of the movie where they're showing you all the different characters, how it's kind of cut like a commercial with a lot of music and a lot of graphics and a lot of filters, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. I don't like it. I mean, like, it was okay with the Harley stuff, like, to kind of show, like, what kind of goes on with her mind. I thought that was kind of cool, but it could have been done a little bit differently, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to be having different perspectives on the movie, and it's probably going to change by tomorrow because there's so much that was put into this movie.
I'm going to watch it again tomorrow.
I can definitely say I enjoy the movie in general, but I think that I understand where she's coming from. I think that I kept myself blinded from so much that I had no idea when certain people were going to show up. I had no idea when they were going to describe these characters' backstories in this certain kind of way, and it made it really cool. Specifically Will's backstory, specifically Harley and Jared Leto's backstory and the flashback sequences in general, just the way they were actually shot. I think that the moments when the flashbacks came up was like lightning, which there's a reason for that. And it has to do with Harley Quinn's mindset and the reason why she is the way she is. So I understand it, but I think they could have used something totally different as far as that transition. But I think in general, I thought it was shot really well. As far as the action sequences, it was choreographed perfectly. Specifically, it highlighted Will Smith a lot. But Jared Leto, every time he was on scene, the makeup for him and Harley, and even like Killer Croc, like, I think that they did a great job with all of them. Even with DIablo, a lot of times, like, the fire and, like, flames
they
in
did
films,
some creative stuff with that.
They kind of messed that up, most movies. But I think they did a really good job of serving him justice in terms of him as a character.
Yeah.
But
I loved how they took his backstory straight from Suicide Squad Volume 1. Like, not from the 80s or 90s because he wasn't in those, but since the 2011 series, because that's the only place I've ever known Diablo from. So it's like,
I think that they did a good job, and that's a good segue into the acting or the actors.
He was
in general.
good. Jay Hernandez was one of my favorite actors in this movie.
He did a great job. Like, I actually am more invested in trying to figure out who Diablo was, you know what I'm saying, and who his character meant in this movie and the confines of where they used him. I think that David Ayer did a good job utilizing him in this film. And even Will Smith. I think that Will Smith and his comedic timing and just the heart that he was as far as not even so much leadership, but I think that he worked. Him and the person they start, well, it was going to be Tom Hardy, right? It was going to be Rick Flagg.
Yeah.
But I think that the guy that did it, he did a good job.
This dude's good.
I mean, I think for what his source material, I think he played off of everybody perfectly. But the thing that I will say before we get into Jared Leto and Margot Robbie is nobody talks about Viola Davis. Dude, she nailed Amanda Waller.
She is a BAMF.
Dude.
Stone cold killer.
Like,
I don't give no fucks. Like,
she's a G.
Amanda the Wall.
I think that Will had even said, he's like, oh, yo, she's a G.
Yeah.
Like, I think she legit said that.
Like she does something in this movie, and then he just walks by her and he goes, that was G.
Yeah.
That was
Like, it is seriously the way that they handle her character. Like, she could have been the ultimate bad guy. And in a lot of different ways, she is. Because a lot of the events that happen in the story, we'll talk about soon in our spoiler review, she's the catalyst to a lot of it. But I think Viola Davis nailed it. But Jared Leto and Margot Robbie, oh, Mr. J, he nailed it. Oh my gosh, this man, he lit it up for me every second. I think the problem...
This is where I get mad, though.
This is where I'll talk about...
Because in the second trailer, we see that scene where he, like, drops a bomb on the ground, and he's all like, bye-bye, and half his face is burned, and he looks just like he does in the Endgame storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what was behind that, and I'm assuming that's right after... Well, we can't spoil it.
Yeah, we can't spoil it. Yeah.
But I was just like, where was that? Where, like...
We'll get more into...
Where was he?
We'll get more into...
Where was he?
Like, the sequences that I know and that she knows very well from the trailers and stuff like that. We're trying not to go into that as much, but all we can really say is there are a lot of sequences for Jared Leto, Margot Robbie, and a lot of other characters that were just kind of taken out. Like, if you remember the sequence in the trailer with the bar sequence, that was kind of rewritten in a different way. We'll go into the aspects of that later. But as far as their performances, for me, I think Jared Leto nailed it. Every time that he was on sequence, every time that he was on cue, like, he was in it. And I think that I did good not to look as much material and interviews and stuff like that.
But that's the thing, I didn't even look at as much as you did when it comes to Jared Leto.
Oh, you did?
No, I didn't watch that last Joker trailer.
Because...
I tried to avoid, like, so much after the Blitz trailer came out.
Well, the Joker trailer, it didn't show, you know, those sequences that weren't there. And I think that, I don't know, everybody has been saying as far as their reviews is that they wanted more of Jared Leto. For me, I didn't expect anything.
That I've fallen in love with his interpretation, I need to see more.
I think that for me, I went in not thinking there was going to be any sequences. I thought that everything was going to be like knocked out, essentially. And I think because I went into it that way, maybe you should. You'll definitely have a better experience if you go into it not thinking you're going to get like a whole plethora of moments with him. But he does play a really big arc with Harley Quinn, and I think that Margot Robbie, if anything I don't talk about on this review, is that she nails this role. Like, she could have her own movie and still keep it up, because every single time she's talking, she's either very dangerous, very methodical, very just volatile, but that is the embodiment of her character. And she knows the character more than I do.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that she's the perfect Harley Quinn.
Margot, like, of all the issues this film has, Margot is not one of them. She's definitely, at one point I was just wishing it was a Harley Quinn movie. Mm-hmm. When I was getting kind of bored of, like, you know, all this stuff with Enchantress and all, like, I kind of, when I saw the reviews saying, like, oh, Suicide Squad has a weak villain and it sucks, I was like, come on, all superhero movies have a weak villain? No, that's not. It's pretty obvious that she's a villain. And yeah.
Anywho.
It was awkward.
For me, like I said though, as far as the performances, as far as the acting, I thought everybody brought it. I thought everybody did a great job as far as their performances and the way that they actually pushed into it. I think that they owned their characters. The only one that I say that got the short end of the stick was Slipknot. And Scott Eastwood's character, I don't know who he was, really, which he could have been, I don't know. We'll go into that later, more in the spoiler review. Lieutenant GQ.
No, honestly, I don't know who he was.
Lieutenant GQ.
Lieutenant GQ.
I don't know who that is. I don't know. But anywho, going into the story, for me, I wasn't looking for too much. I really wasn't. Like, I looked at it last night, I saw it on Arkham. I was looking to make sure two things. I wanted to make sure the team worked together as a unit. They actually had compelling arcs. They had compelling stories and backstories. Those backstories were really rushed throughout the pacing of how this story was. But you can tell that there's a lot there that was kind of cut out. For what they did give me for those characters, I think they did it well. For the formation of the group and them working together, I was behind them. Like, even though a lot of the third act didn't make a lot of sense for me, and I didn't think it was necessary, because I think that Joker and Amanda Waller could have been villains in their own rights in this movie without that villain being there at all. I think it was just a catalyst for something catastrophic to happen. Now, I'll say that the villain in what they do to the United States in general, I think that is going to play in a bigger role later on. And I think that was a really interesting thing that I didn't think that they would do. And there's a mid-sequence like cutscene. Like, at the end of the movie, make sure you go through the general credits, because there's a big thing that happens there that if you're excited for what's going to happen next with the DC Universe, you have to watch it, because it'll make things connected in so many different ways. And there are some cameos. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting cameos. There are some awesome nudges. If any of y'all are Alex Ross fans, if any of y'all are fans of like Joker in general and Harley Quinn, you're gonna love those moments that I'm talking about. But as far as the story, there's a lot of different convoluted things that kind of happen, and they kind of fall short. It's sad, but in terms of the group, they work good as a unit. They work good acting it. It's just a lot of the third act just didn't make any necessary sense. No. But what is your final conclusions as far as the story, and then we'll wrap it up with a number.
I'm not giving it a number today. I need to see it at least one more time. I felt like the story was, I don't know, I kind of felt like the movie didn't really know what it wanted to be. That's kind of how I felt, and I found myself really only smiling or getting excited during the Harley moments, and during a few jokes here and there with Will Smith and Viola Davis. The cast did their job. They did a good job. I thought Killer Croc was a little bit cheesy, but as far as the story, I don't know. I feel like that very last scene of the movie, not the mid-credit scene, but the very last scene, that gave me a look into a movie that I want to see next, you know? I was like, okay, where's that gonna go? Show me, please.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I'm not too excited about, what's June Moon gonna do next, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that we haven't talked about. As far as Enchantress, and as far as her involvement of the story and the arc, when she was Enchantress in the very beginning, and the way that they showed her and platformed her, that worked. That was really cool. It was really scary. My girlfriend, she freaked out when she was looking at it. But towards the third act, when certain powers and stuff start happening and certain things, it's like I'm torn, because there's a lot of lives being lost, but is kind of it's missing the heart value of what is really happening. And unfortunately, I mean, I feel bad for her, because the actress that's acting in this role, she's kind of shortchanged. She doesn't even, a large part of her time as that villain or as that character, she doesn't even get to use her actual voice. And so,
she's there to look pretty.
But that's to me the biggest negative for me about the movie. For me, I was laughing the entire time. Every time that Will Smith was cracking a joke, every time that I saw Deadshot, just do his thing, I was all in it. Every time that I saw Margot Robbie and I saw Jared Leto together, I was like, I can't believe I'm actually seeing these characters in the way that they are. And it's just for me, just an excitement level, I really enjoyed the film. Do I think the movie is perfect? No. Do I think the story could have been better? Yes. Do I think it was tampered? Absolutely. I think that there are things that were cut out of this movie that changed it from being a dynamic, dramatic, epic film to something that was more cookie cutter and just for enjoyment purposes, that we will go into those details of things that were missing, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to be an advocate for negativity. I want you to go to the movie for your own perspective, but not going in with expecting a whole lot from these specific characters, or even a lot of screen time. I will tell you, for me, that each one of them worked as a unit, as a group, and individually as characters. And so that was, for me, all I really wanted, and I actually brought more enjoyment out of it than I thought I ever could. So for me, I give Suicide Squad between a 7 and 7.5. I think I'm gonna rest it right now at a 7.5. I think that if I watch it again tomorrow, I might enjoy it a little bit more. Just because I was kind of wrestling with the same thing with her, like the negative reviews that keep on hitting, the DC bashing.
That put me in a mood.
And I think I was trying to help her lower her expectations and just enjoy the movie versus trying to, in your head, prove these, people wrong in the sense that you can enjoy a superhero film without trying to make it something more than it has to be. And it's like, it's bad from a fan standpoint. We're both DC fans and Marvel fans, and we want this franchise to succeed. We don't want it to get trashed down. We don't want, another BVS situation to happen. And it's kind of happening in front of us while we're even talking about this right now. But for me, going into it, I knew what I needed to do to try to enjoy this film. And that was to see if these characters were going to be embodied real and whether or not Jared Leto was going to succeed in his portrayal. It's the same thing for Margot Robbie and Viola Davis, and I think they all nailed that for me. Even if the movie was very contrived and disjointed in a lot of sequences and the editing was mashed up in the wrong kind of way. So that's the reason why I give it a 7.5, between 7 and 7.5 out of 10. Hopefully y'all go in the movie, check out yourself. Leave in the comment section below what y'all thought about it. We'll be back probably tomorrow or Sunday or something like that, and we'll talk more about spoilers because Joe will have his own perspective because he hasn't seen anything. So I think Joe's gonna enjoy it more than anybody because he has not been spoiled by anything. When y'all talking all the joke about Joe like not looking at the reaction, that's why
I'm so jealous now. I'm never watching another trailer. That's why I'm pissed. That is why I'm pissed.
But Mr. J's gotta leave, and we'll talk to y'all later. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Me and Ray will be back.
Bye.